Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into some uh, really fascinating and, frankly, pretty provocative material today.
Definitely.
Our source is excerpts from a book called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, a handbook for personal liberty.
Right from the title, you know it's going to challenge some conventional thinking. The core idea Brown lays out is that personal freedom isn't really about changing the external world, you know?
Yeah, like lobbying or convincing other people to see things your way.
Exactly. Or waiting for society to magically rearrange itself. It argues freedom comes from somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, the book really hammers home that freedom is fundamentally about your own internal state, your decisions and your actions.
And the kicker is, according to this material, you can start finding that freedom right now, regardless of what's happening around you.
Which is a pretty bold claim.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the key insights, the sort of nuggets from this source.
Right. We want to understand what the author sees as the main traps keeping people feeling unfree.
And then explore the direct alternatives he proposes as the path to, well, personal liberty, all based on the material we've got here.
Okay, let's start with how the book defines freedom, because it's very specific. It's not about, fitting into some societal ideal.
No, not at all. The source is clear. Freedom is simply living your life the way you want to live it. Period. It's that personal.
And crucially, the material insists this definition must factor in your unique emotional nature, your goals, your values, your tastes.
Everything that makes you you.
Right. If you're trying to force yourself into someone else's mold, even if you look free to others, the book says you're not actually living according to your nature.
hmm So if freedom is that personal and potentially right here, right now, why do most people feel so constrained?
Good question.
The book identifies basically two main reasons people aren't free, which show up as various traps.
Okay, let's get into the first major one the book identifies, the identity trap.
Right. This trap, according to the source, is the belief that you should live in a way determined by others,
Or the other side of that coin.
or assuming others will react to things the same way you would.
And the material's pretty blunt about why this just doesn't work. It says everyone is fundamentally unique.
Yeah, it uses that analogy like a stone versus a peanut butter sandwich. You don't expect them to act the same way, right? Different natures.
So similarly, every human acts based on their own unique identity, their own knowledge, their own way of seeing things.
So expecting them to act just like you would is, well, it's expecting something that just can't happen.
You can't control other people's natures.
Nope. But the source really emphasizes you absolutely can control how you deal with them and, the extent and the manner of your involvement.
And the key to escaping this trap, it seems, is discovering and accepting yourself, really accepting who you are.
Absolutely. The book argues that what others say you should be, that's almost always based on their nature or maybe how they think you'd be more valuable to them. So until you genuinely know and accept who you are, it's hard to have the conviction to live freely. You're basically trying to live someone else's script.
You're operating from a false premise, either about yourself or about other people.
Exactly. Which leads us nicely into the second major type of trap the book talks about, the intellectual trap.
Okay, the intellectual trap. Sounds like trying to think your way out of problems.
It's a bit more specific. It's about trying to sort of regiment your emotions to fit some standard you've decided on intellectually.
Ah, okay. Believing your feelings should line up with what you think they should be or what society says is rational or appropriate.
Precisely. And why is that a trap?
Well, I'm guessing because emotions aren't really voluntary.
That's exactly what the source points out. Emotions, happiness, unhappiness, love, fear, they're fundamentally involuntary responses. You can't just command yourself to feel something you don't.
Right, you can't just tell yourself, okay, be happy now, and suddenly be genuinely happy.
Or find happiness just by doing what makes other people happy, or doing what you think a good person should do.
That path disconnects you from how you actually feel.
Right. The book argues that to find happiness, or any real emotional state, you have to understand how your unique emotional nature responds. You have to honestly observe your own reactions, take them seriously.
So a practical example the source gives is, if someone consistently, say, infuriates you, don't try to just suppress that feeling and deal with it coolly because you think that's the mature or right way.
Exactly. Recognize the emotional reaction. Accept it. Then find a way to handle the situation maybe without confrontation, or even better, arrange things so you just don't have to deal with that person much, if at all.
trying to use your intellect to just override a consistent gut feeling in
Mhm.
important situations. The book says that can be risky, unproductive.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears a bit, but still related. The book identifies another really powerful societal trap, the unselfishness trap.
Ah, yes. The belief that you must put the happiness and needs of others ahead of your own, a virtue, right?
Well, this is where the book really pushes back against a widely accepted ideal. The author's perspective is pretty stark. He argues that everyone, deep down, always acts in ways they believe will make them feel good or at least remove some discomfort from their own life.
Wow. Okay, so even, like, helping others.
From this viewpoint, yes. Whether you're talking about a saint helping the poor or a criminal committing a crime, the ultimate driver, according to this source, is seeking their own perceived well-being or satisfaction.
That sounds pretty cynical on the surface. So how does the book suggest we interact then, if it's not about sacrifice or unselfishness?
It flips the script entirely. Instead of sacrifice, the alternative proposed is seeking mutually beneficial relationships or exchanges. Situations where both parties genuinely benefit.
Okay, like the example of buying a house.
Exactly. The buyer wants the house more than the money they have. The seller wants the money more than the house they have. Both walk away feeling they gained something they value more.
Ah, so the insight is when desires are actually compatible, nobody needs to sacrifice anything.
Precisely. So the book's rather counterintuitive advice boils down to support your local self. Focus on giving to you first.
Yeah.
It argues that it's only when you're operating from a place of personal strength, honesty, and self-awareness that you can actually engage in genuinely productive and mutually beneficial interactions with others.
That definitely turns common thinking on its head. Okay, moving on, there's the group trap.
Right. This is the common belief that you can achieve more by working together in groups, sharing responsibilities, efforts, rewards, than you can by acting alone.
Seems logical, right? Teamwork makes the dream work.
Well, the source argues groups are often inefficient precisely because they neutralize individual incentives.
Mm.
When you lump everything together, responsibility, effort, reward, individual motivation can get diluted.
Okay.
As an individual, the book says, you think, you decide, you act only for yourself. The idea that you can somehow multiply your effectiveness just by joining a group, Browne contends that's not really how it works from this perspective. You often just dilute your own potential and lose control.
So the argument is that direct alternatives where you act purely on your own behalf are actually easier and let you go as far as you are willing, with rewards tied directly to your effort.
That's the core argument. And the source points out how this trap can show up in restrictive relationships like business partnerships, sometimes marriages, even family loyalties, where the group structure itself can limit individual freedom and action.
Okay, and then we get to a really significant and potentially controversial section. The government traps.
Yeah, this is a big one in the book. The source material presents government primarily as an agency of coercion. It even makes a comparison to entities like the mafia, saying the key difference is mainly public acceptance of the government's authority.
Okay, that's a strong statement. So what are the specific traps related to government?
It lays out 4. Trap 1, according to the source. Believing governments perform socially useful functions that truly deserve your support.
Trap 2. Believing you have a moral or legal duty to obey laws just because they are laws.
Trap 3. The belief that government can be reliably counted on to carry out social reforms you happen to favor.
And trap 4. The fear that the government is just too powerful, too big to stop you from being free anyway.
Right. The book situates government within what it calls the general market. That's basically where people make voluntary exchanges like trading money for goods or time for wages.
But it argues government constantly tries to overrule this natural market process using coercion, force.
And from the source's perspective, because government is set up like a giant group trap, it sees it as inherently inefficient. It's still subject to market limits, like having limited resources, and the huge difficulty of coordinating millions of people effectively.
So, ironically, the source suggests we're actually free to the extent that the government is inefficient and can't fully enforce its programs.
That's part of the argument, yeah. It makes working through government for change like social reform a classic indirect alternative.
Because it depends on convincing millions of others, dealing with bureaucracy. It's slow, uncertain.
Exactly. Which the source contrasts sharply with a direct alternative. If you want to help someone, it says, maybe just keep your money, say, by legally avoiding taxes where possible, and give aid directly to individuals or causes you choose yourself.
The book argues that's far more effective and certain.
And the material is quite critical of government services generally. Argues they're often low quality, come with hidden costs, red tape.
Obligations, dependency.
Right. And there's always a price, even if it's not obvious.
A sharp point the book makes is about what government protects us from. Things like gambling, drugs. These are often two-sided, voluntary deals people could just choose to avoid.
Whereas the government imposes one-sided transactions, taxes, regulations, the draft, which are much harder to opt out of.
And what about national defense? That's usually seen as a core government function.
The source offers a really counterintuitive take here. It argues that if there were no central government, there wouldn't be a nation in the way an aggressor could easily conquer just by taking over the governmental machinery. Aggressors conquer governments and the control systems they represent. They don't usually try to conquer every single individual person in a large area. The source uses the Hitler example. His aim was to take over the governments of Europe, the existing power structures.
That's a different way of looking at it.
Definitely. So the big takeaway from this whole section, according to Browne, is basically there's nothing the government can truly do for you that you couldn't potentially do for yourself, maybe more easily, more securely, less expensively, and critically, without needing permission or public approval.
Understanding that, the source argues, helps you avoid these government traps and stop wasting energy trying to get what you want through those channels.
Yeah, that section alone is quite a deep dive into one specific and pretty radical perspective.
It really is. Okay, moving on. We have the previous investment trap.
The sunk cost fallacy, basically.
Right. This trap is the belief that time, effort, or money you've already spent in the past has to be considered when you're deciding what to do now.
Like staying in a miserable job for years just because you've already put in so much time.
Or holding on to a stock that's tanking because you want to get back what you originally paid.
Exactly. And the trap is that past expenditure, it's gone. Poof. Irretrievable. It's irrelevant to your future decisions.
What actually matters is what you have right now, your current time, energy, money, skills.
And figuring out the absolute best way to use those current resources to get what you want in the future.
Right. The material advises learning from the past, sure, but don't feel obligated to keep pouring good money after bad, so to speak.
Or good time after bad time.
Exactly. Don't cling to something that isn't working now just to justify a past decision. Recognize the loss, cut it loose if a better future option exists.
Yeah, the example in the source of the woman enduring a boring lecture course just because she'd already paid the fee, it perfectly illustrates wasting present time because you already wasted past money.
That really clarifies the cost, doesn't it?
Okay.
Then there's the certainty trap.
This trap, according to the source, is about accepting information from others. Could be experts, books, authorities, maybe even us here, as absolute, final, unquestionable truth.
And why is that a trap? We rely on experts all the time.
True. But the book argues everyone, including experts, has human limitations, limits in perception, logic, knowledge. Experts know a lot about their specific field, sure, but they know very little, usually nothing, about you specifically, your unique situation, your nature.
Okay, so the insight here is that you are ultimately the final authority on your own life.
Yes, you have to filter all incoming information through your own worldview, your own nature, your own goals. See how it fits for you.
It also encourages just acknowledging uncertainty. It's okay not to have all the answers.
Absolutely. The source mentions the Virginia Tye case, the Bridey Murphy past life claims. Even she, supposedly remembering a past life, maintained a kind of reasonable, non-absolute stance on what it all proved. She accepted the ambiguity, which the book presents as a strength.
Okay, so we've looked at quite a few traps. The book then shifts focus to this crucial distinction between direct versus indirect alternatives. This seems like the core strategy for actually applying these ideas.
It really is. Browne argues pretty forcefully that the most effective, most reliable path to personal freedom is focusing your energy on direct alternatives.
Meaning actions and choices that you control entirely.
Right. As opposed to indirect alternatives, which usually involve trying to change other people or reorient society or get institutions to act differently.
Could you give us an example from the book to make that clearer?
Sure. The source uses dealing with discrimination, trying to eliminate discrimination from society completely through lobbying, protests, education campaigns. That's presented as a classic indirect alternative.
Because it takes huge effort, huge time, and depends on influencing millions of other people you don't control.
Exactly. So what's the direct alternative in that situation, according to the book?
Well, the book's argument, as I understand it, is you don't actually need all of society to change.
Right, you just need one job where you're treated fairly, or one group of friends who accept you, or one partner who treats you the way you want to be treated.
So the direct alternative is using selectivity,
hmm
finding compatible people or situations that already exist and work for you.
Instead of trying to force incompatible ones to change, it's about focusing your search effectively.
That's a really powerful reframing. Now, the book takes these core ideas, the traps, the direct alternatives,
hmm
and applies them to different areas of life, like relationships.
hmm
It suggests that even traditional structures like marriage and family can, maybe surprisingly, function as traps or feel restrictive.
Yes, particularly legal marriage.
Yeah.
The book's perspective is that when you get legally married, it's not just a contract between two people anymore.
It becomes a contract with the government.
Exactly. Which brings in a whole set of external rules, state-dictated financial possibilities if there's a divorce, even requiring government permission to end the relationship.
So as an alternative, the source suggests exploring things like non-marriage or maybe just mutually beneficial arrangements, ways to get love, closeness, whatever you desire.
But without that rigid, external, government-defined structure imposed on top.
And what's the main rule for these non-marriage arrangements, according to the book?
It's actually quite simple in principle. Don't ask either person to sacrifice their sovereignty, their ultimate self-control.
So avoid situations needing joint control of property or time or major life interests. Allow each person to follow their own path while finding where those paths happily overlap.
That's the idea. Keep things separate where appropriate. The book even advises separating the purely emotional part of a love relationship from other practical dealings, like who pays rent or does chores.
Appeal to self-interest for those practical things, like it's in your interest to help keep the place clean because you live here too, rather than just do it because you love me.
Pretty much. Relying solely on emotion for practicalities can be unreliable, the book suggests. Self-interest is more constant.
Okay, then what about raising children? The material offers a very unconventional view there too.
Highly unconventional. It suggests aiming to raise them as sovereign individuals right from the start, with their own property, their own world, allowed to experience the direct consequences of their actions, good and bad.
So the parent's role shifts.
Yeah.
Less moral authority dictating behavior.
And more a source of information and opinion about potential consequences, like if you do X, Y might happen, your choice.
The source also really emphasizes the sheer risk and responsibility parents take on, bringing a stranger, essentially, into their home and life for 18-plus years.
Yeah, it suggests maybe parents should wait until their own lives and plans are more settled, perhaps 30s or 40s, before taking on such an immense long-term commitment so they're clearer about what they're getting into.
And what about other relatives? Aunts, uncles, parents?
The book challenges the automatic assumption of duty just based on blood ties. It argues relationships ideally should be based on mutual self-interest and genuine compatibility.
It pushes back against that feeling of infinite debt some people feel towards their parents for raising them.
Right, it reframes it. The parents made a calculated, self-interested decision from the book's perspective when they chose to have and raise a child. You, as the child grown up, are now the sovereign authority for your own life.
Okay. Switching to work and business. The book sees the group trap applying pretty directly to traditional employment.
Definitely. Being an employee often fits that model of shared responsibilities, diluted incentives, fixed hours regardless of output.
So the suggested alternative, coming from this source,
Is to try and act more like a supplier or contractor, providing specific services or results, rather than just selling your time on a payroll for fixed hours.
the benefits of book lists for that kind of approach.
More control over your own hours, for one. Potentially making more money, because you're paid for results, not just time clocked. More free time overall, possibly, and often significant tax advantages.
The material argues that customers or clients, they mostly care about results, getting their problem solved.
Exactly. So traditional things like degrees or licenses might actually be less important than your proven ability to deliver the value they need.
And if you get really good at solving a specific type of problem for people,
Then you become valuable. You might even create what the book calls a kind of natural monopoly, where you're highly valued, maybe even irreplaceable to certain clients because you uniquely meet their needs.
okay. Throughout all these applications, relationships, a really key thread seems to be the power of self-awareness and honesty.
Absolutely fundamental. The book presents understanding your unique nature as the bedrock for finding freedom.
And it says being yourself isn't just automatic, it's a skill. Takes practice.
Yeah, it takes time and practice to develop. And it offers this compelling insight about your differences, the things that make you unique. Those can be your most powerful assets
Why?
because they reduce competition.
Ah, like the wavy hair example from the book. If most people want straight hair and you have wavy hair, your potential market might be smaller, but you might have zero competition within that niche.
Exactly. And living openly as you want to live acts as a form of advertising yourself. It attracts compatible people who are looking for precisely what you uniquely offer.
And honesty is highly valued in the source material.
Hugely. Brings benefits like others trusting you more. You can relax because you're not maintaining a facade.
And crucially, revealing yourself honestly, flaws and all, allows compatible people to find you and appreciate you for who you really are.
Sometimes the book suggests your most useful assets might be the very things you spent years trying to hide.
Even admitting seemingly selfish motives, like the author saying he wrote the book partly to make money, the book argues that can paradoxically build trust because it's transparent.
Right. Now, the book isn't just philosophy. It does offer some practical techniques for change. One really significant one is called labeling activities.
Okay, how does that work?
It's a method where you honestly categorize how you spend your time activity by activity over maybe a week or a month. You use specific labels.
What are the labels?
There is good, meaning it makes you feel genuinely good. Bad causes discomfort or unhappiness. Indifferent, just neutral, no real feeling either way. Productive short-term gives an immediate gain. Productive long-term contributes to a future gain. And finally, productive never offers no hope of any gain, ever.
Wow, okay. So you labeled everything you do. Then what?
The action step, once you've labeled honestly, is pretty direct. Eliminate the bad activities, eliminate the productive never activities entirely.
Get rid of them.
Yep. And then seriously question the indifferent ones. Are they truly necessary or just habits, time fillers?
The goal here, according to the source, is to simplify your life, increase your sense of self-control, boost confidence.
And ultimately increase your overall happiness. It helps you answer that really vital question the book poses. How many hours a week are you genuinely happy?
That's confronting.
It is. And the book cautions, don't get completely trapped living only for some future payoff that might never come. This labeling helps you make sure you're also finding ways to enjoy the present.
That makes sense. Finally, the source offers some guidance on getting out of boxes. Those difficult situations where you feel really stuck, could be a bad job, a relationship, anything.
Right. The very first step is just to clearly identify the box, the trap you feel you're in.
Then you ask two critical questions.
Exactly. First, what price am I paying right now by staying in this situation? What's it costing me emotionally, financially, time-wise?
And second, what would be the price I'd have to pay to get out?
And the material stresses, there is always a price to get out of a restrictive situation. Always. Could be money, could be emotional pain, could be disapproval from others.
And a key technique the book suggests is to mentally rehearse paying that price. Picture it vividly.
Yeah. Imagine telling your boss you quit. Imagine the difficult conversation with a partner. Imagine the potential negative reactions, anger, tears, judgment. The idea is to repeat this mental exercise until the thought of paying the price is no longer terrifying or paralyzing.
You also need to define your maximum acceptable price. What's the absolute limit you're willing to pay or endure to get out of this specific box?
Right. Be clear on that. And if there are actual commitments you've made that are keeping you stuck,
Face them.
face them directly. Negotiate if you can. Or just be prepared to pay the cost to break free. The book argues sometimes taking a big short-term loss, maybe financially, maybe emotionally, is absolutely worth the long-term freedom you gain.
The author uses his own divorce as an example.
Yeah, right.
Being willing to give up almost everything initially.
And then finding later on, he reacquired the things that were truly valuable to him. Better relationships, financial stability on much better terms, because he was free.
It's also essential, the source says, to ask questions. Dissolve the mystery surrounding the situation.
Yeah, understand why people are acting the way they are. What do vague promises actually depend on? Define unclear terms like soon. Knowing the realities, the why behind things, makes it much easier to act decisively yourself.
And the source adds, be prepared for surprises when you make big changes. Not just negative ones, but maybe positive ones you didn't expect. Like his ex-wife thriving independently after their separation.
Right, and the ultimate message running through this whole section on getting out of boxes is, don't wait. You can start living for yourself now. You are responsible.
Which brings us right back around to the fundamental principle woven through this entire source material, the power of choice.
Yeah, the source is completely uncompromising on this point. Every complication, every situation you feel trapped in, ultimately it's something you have allowed or chosen, maybe unconsciously, through assumptions.
You are where you are today because, through a series of decisions and accepted beliefs, you've effectively chosen to be there.
And the incredibly empowering flip side of that is you can choose not to be there.
Freedom, according to this material, isn't usually lost because of some overwhelming external force or enemy.
No, it's lost far more often because of unquestioned beliefs, unchallenged assumptions, the traps you hold in your own mind.
And the person who recognizes this has the inherent power to step out of those traps,
The crucial part is directing your limited time and energy effectively,
where it will have the greatest impact on those direct alternatives that you control.
rather than wasting it on indirect attempts to change the world or other people.
It really is entirely up to you. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change.
The book argues you have the power to create the circumstances you desire.
And pulling directly from the core message of this source, maybe the most powerful idea is you can have your freedom back anytime you choose to take it.
So to kind of wrap up the really powerful and, yeah, often counterintuitive message we've pulled from these sources, personal freedom. It isn't some external thing the world grants you.
No, it's presented as an internal decision, an ongoing process.
A process of deep self-awareness, really brutally honest evaluation of your life and how you spend your time.
Challenging those widely accepted assumptions, the ones that create the traps we talked about. Yeah.
And consistently focusing your energy on direct actions you control to design a life that actually aligns with your unique nature, your values, your desires.
It clearly requires real effort, a significant amount of self-reflection, and definitely a willingness to question some really deeply ingrained beliefs about how life should be lived.
Especially beliefs dictated by external expectations or society or institutions. It asks you to turn inward first.
Figure out what truly works for you.
And then build your life, your relationships from that foundation of self-knowledge and ideally compatible exchange, not from compromise or obligation or what feels like sacrifice.
And maybe the most direct, most provocative thought this material leaves us with, placing the power and the responsibility squarely in your hands, is this line.
Complications are something you've allowed. You are where you are today because you've chosen to be there. And you can choose not to be there.